Good afternoon, YouTubers. Today we're going to be replacing this lower panel, and I'm going to be using just a basic adhesive to attach this lower panel with. We're going to be using a marine adhesive 5200. Now they make this in 5200, 4200. 5200 is a lot stronger. Now in another video that I had done about using 5200, a lot of people posted in the comments saying, the fuser, the 208B, is a lot stronger. It sounds, body panel adhesive, that's, a lot better. This Motorcraft stuff's garbage, don't understand that. But anyway, the 5200, granted, the tensile strength on 5200 is metal to plywood or metal to fiberglass is only about 1,000 pounds per square inch. Fiberglass to fiberglass, I think it's 750, 800 pounds per square inch. Metal to metal, though, it's about 1,400 pounds per square inch. Now, you take something like the fuser here, this stuff is 2,000 pounds per square inch, which is, obviously a lot better. But, and this is a big but, when you're working with old panels like this, you have to have that panel perfectly clean. There cannot be any paint, no undercoating, no dust, no debris, nothing like that in order to get proper adhesion. If you go, this stuff drops down. If you go just 50% paint and 50% metal, like you cannot get it perfectly clean and there's still some paint there. This stuff goes from 2,000 pounds down to 200 pounds per square inch. Where the 5200 will adhere to paint. Now it's only going to be as strong as what the paint is adhered to the panel. So if the paint peels away from the metal, then it's not going to be 1,400 psi, 1,400 pounds per square inch. But as long as, you've got a decently clean surface, wipe it down with acetone, you got, 50% of the paint off at least, you got some good deep scratches going in there. This stuff will adhere to it and will hold the panels on. I've used this stuff for years. A mud truck that I had, a Bronco that I had, I actually put two halves of one together with nothing but 5200, and it held up for years, running it through the mud. So like I said, it does work, it does hold, and like I said, it's a lot cheaper. This stuff's $25, $28 a tube. The fuser, I want to say, is like $70, $80. The Sems is closer to $90 for that. You have to have a special gun to utilize that. This, you just need, regular old silicone gun. Like I said, the downside to this is it takes, depending upon the temperature, it takes 5 to 10 days to dry, to get hard. But once that bond is made, once it sticks, it's there, and it's there for good. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to mark this all out. Now, when marking it out, of course, you're going to need a Sharpie, tape measure, and a straight edge. But what you want to do is you want to measure, you want to get a point of reference, and you want to put a mark here so that you know how tall this is. Now, when I cut this, I'm going to be cutting this right across here, kind of like so, to get rid of, and that's just a rough line, but to get rid of the rust. So when I put the new piece in, it's going to sit right here and hide the lip right underneath of this body molding piece here. Now, the other thing with this is you need at least 1.25 inches of overlap if you're doing this in order to get proper adhesion. If you only have 1/4 inch, it's not going to be enough. This stuff won't get strong. And even the fuser, the Lord's fuser, that stuff requires a full inch of, it's recommended, I should say, a full inch of overlap in order for proper adhesion. So, like I said, the more, the better. I'm going to try to, save as much of this as possible. So hopefully we get like 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches if I incorporate a little bit of this curve. The more you get, the better. So, but like I said, for starters, the first thing you want to do is mark this here, mark it down at the other end for point of reference, so that when you put the new panel on, you make sure that it's not sticking down further or up further, and your body lines will be the same as what it was. Now, like I said, I don't really care about this truck. This is going to be just a beater truck I take in the Walmart parking lot and don't really care about if it gets dinged up. But that being said, if this was something that I cared about and something that I really wanted to look perfect, I would be putting the door on and off after I had this roughly, you know, just a few tack screws into it, just to make sure if any tweaking needs to get done, it'll get done before this stuff sets up. So that's something you may want to do if you do try to do this, is put it onto the truck. And like I said, it's going to be goopy, it's going to be nasty. Make sure you wear gloves. You're going to get this stuff everywhere, so make sure, you know, you've got some acetone handily by so you can wipe it down. But I'm going to go ahead and get started, get this all marked out, and then we'll be back. All right, we're back. Now, I don't know if you can see it here, but where I cut the inner, I've got a good, you know, 1.5 inches or so, yeah, 1 9/16 from there to here. Now, all you should really need is, like you said, you don't want to cut all the way through when you cut this panel here. You just want to cut through this outer skin here. And this should come right off of there like that. Now, as you can see up in here, we've got a little bit of rust in here that I'm going to have to put some rust treatment on, clean this up. But the rest of this, the bottom of this, I'm going to clean this all up. I'm going to clean this up. And the new panel, when I put the new panel on, I'm going to cut this panel down. I'm going to put it on so that it aligns right about there. So that with a little bit of filler, it just will continue this line down a little bit more. So this is going to be a little bit more pronounced. Like I said, would I do this to a, you know, a good truck? No. But for something that I'm just going to run around, it's going to be a parts truck, this is fine. Like I said, I don't have a lot of time. I've got another truck that I want to do a video on that's a much more higher end build that I'm going to do next. So I'm just trying to bang this out. Just trying to bang this out and get it done for you. So you can see some simple ways. Like I said, this door, it's probably shot. I mean, actually, this door probably is salvageable. The driver's door, when we do that, you'll see that door is completely shot, but we're going to save it. And like I said, the only reason I'm saving this door is because it matches the truck. I may go with like a patina style paint job on this, but I do have a freewheeling cab that is the same, well, it's a 78, not a 79, but it's the same color, I think. I'm going to actually have it scanned because I think it may have had even though the door code shows that it's the same color, I think it may have had a custom paint put onto it from the factory, and they just never changed the code on the door. And I don't see the sticker. Generally, there's a little sticker telling what the paint code is, but like you said, it is a different shade red than this, and we're gonna research that a little bit too. But anyway, let me get this cleaned up, and then we'll get back here. I'm gonna cut this panel down. I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do, and then we'll go from there. Another thing of an important note that I forgot to mention before, is you want to notch this out right here. As you can see, I took this little chunk of metal out of here so that way you can fold this down into itself just a tiny bit. So when you put the new panel on here, you've got just a tiny bit more curve to this so that the panel will set flat. I'm not lapping it. I mean, I could lap it, but like I said, for this project, I'm not going to lap it. I'm just going to fold this panel in slightly, and then, like I said, set this up so it matches perfectly with this bend. This bend's nice and straight. I want to keep it nice and straight, and like I said, you know, what's going to happen is it's going to basically sit in here very much like so, with this bent down, so that it just kind of elongates that curve a little bit. It may not make a lot of sense now, but once I have it done, part two, this is going to be a two-part video. Part two, and fill this in with a little bit of body filler, you'll never be able to tell that this has been patched. Stay tuned. All right, and we're back. I don't know if the camera we'll pick it up. But one thing you'll have to do too is some relief cuts right here in the corners. I'm gonna have to make this one probably a little bit longer, just to help you kind of fold this in a little bit to accept this panel. But this is basically how it's going to go on here. Now the other thing too is this side is a whisker short down here, and this side is a whisker long down here. Just, you know, you got to make do with the panels that we get today. You know, if there's any area that you have to fudge, you want it to be at the hinge side of the door. You'll never see it in there. Here, as soon as you open up the door, it's going to be obvious. I'm going to have to take a hammer, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's a pretty good gap right in here. And I'm really going to have to, you know, tap this down in here. But our measurements measure out okay. There's a little bit of waffle in this edge here. You can probably see it curves out down there. I'm going to have to take a pair of flat benders and straighten that out. But I'm going to go ahead, drill a bunch of holes in this, get this piece fastened on, and then we'll flip it over, and I'll show you what we're going to do with the outer piece. So, like I said, you may have to take a pair of pump pliers, just kind of bend this in a little bit, just to help accept this so that it's not a pronounced bulge. Like right here, you can see I've got a pretty good bulge going right there, which means I need to trim this down a little bit more, and I need to bend this in, and I need to bend that down. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's on the inside of the door, you know, and like I said, this thing's just going to be a shop truck, nothing really special. But like I said, I want it to look halfway decent, and you'll see how it looks when we get done. But let me shut the camera off for a minute, and I'll get bending some of that. Now, one more thing before we attach this. If you look at this panel after I cleaned it up, you can see we don't have all the paint on. There's some areas in here where you just can't get in there. Maybe with a wire brush you might be able to get that a little better. If you were to use a fuser or a Sims product, it would never adhere. It does not bond to paint. It only bonds to metal. Where an adhesive like 5200 will bond to paint. Like I said, the bond is not as strong because the bond is only as strong as the paint is. The bond to metal is a much stronger bond, but it will do it. And like I said, yes, maybe it's only 12 or 1400 pounds per square inch, but it's the bottom of a door. You don't have the weight of the door. You know, it's another thing, it's a different thing. If you're cutting the door completely in half and putting a whole nother bottom half onto the door, in that situation, I probably would agree with all the people that say, oh no, you can never do this. But for the bottom half of the door, there's no stress. You know, it's simply aesthetic. You know, you could cut the door off right here and not even have this, and the door would still open and close and structurally function the same. I mean, it may get a little bit of a twist to it, but like I said, pretty much it would function the same. It's not a major strategical point. You know, I mean, the whole bottom of this was rotted out. If it was that strategical of a part, you know, then the door would have twisted up long before. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead, get the holes drilled in this, get this on, flip it over, and then we'll go on to the outside. Now we're back. When putting the 5200 in, you really want to give it a good amount. More is better. But the other thing is, especially on your inner panel, you want to just have a skim amount all the way around through here. I think I said it before, this stuff is messy. Make sure you wear rubber gloves. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on here, and then I'm just going to clamp this bottom edge using a piece of straight stock. I'm going to put screws in the upper part here. It's real important to make sure this edge lines up. So I'm going to put screws across the top, and then this will go on the bottom and just get clamped on with a couple large C-clamps. Let me get this screwed on here, and then I'll come back and we'll finish up. Alright, so we've got the clamp on there. I don't know if this is going to show up on the camera, but there is a slight dip right in here, and I don't like it. So what I'm going to do is actually take a piece of angle, and right where the dip is, I'm going to drill this right here. Then take and put a screw into it. Just like that. Now straighten that out. There's still a dip right in here. Running low with long screws. Now the other thing too is, like I said, this stuff is going to have to sit. That's the head of that off. Nothing ever goes as planned. There. All right, now that's nice and tight all the way down through there. So, like I said, stay on your projects. It doesn't have to be, anything majorly complicated. If this is something you just want to, have a decent driver, You don't have to get into it. I could have welded this. I would have been hours and hours. I probably have an hour and 15 minutes, maybe an hour and a half into this. And now I can set this aside, let this dry. It's going to take 5 to 10 days to let this dry. I can set it aside and I can move on to something else and try to get this project done. Like I said, I've got about 2 weeks left. If you've been following this, there's still a lot of work that has to be done on this truck. I'm going to do a Rust-Oleum paint job onto it. I may take an interior that I have out of a freewheeling cab. The cab's junk, but it does have everything except for the steering wheel. The freewheeling package on the inside, the door panels are not in great shape, but they're there. So I may put all that in here, put the freewheeling decals onto this, and like I said, it's a truck I don't care about. I can take it to Walmart, someone bangs into it, I'm not going to be overly upset. It's nothing I'm going to take to a car show, but something I'd run through a parade, you know, and kind of go from there. So, as always, stay on your projects, keep working on the old Fords, let's keep them on the road, and we'll see you the next time.